I understand and frequently use the method of tying with the tie ring. I use it in the barn and in all my trailers and have never had an issue. However, how does this coincide with the patient's pole? The horses appear to be tied solid while at the patient's pole. I know that if I were to leave a horse on that, he would eventually test it and find to his surprise that he was tied solid. I don't imagine he would take to that easily after being taught that pulling gives release.
When we're talking about tying the horses up, there's a few things to consider here. Before we ever tie a horse up, we're always going to do some form of the fundamentals groundwork. Preferably, I need to at least get lunging for respect stage 1 and the sending exercise accomplished. Both of these exercises are going to get the horses, when you point and they feel pressure behind their ears and they feel pressure on that halter, they're going to come forward and yield to the pressure. So that's first things first, okay? But then once I start tying the horses, my first go-to is always the tie ring. It's the safest way to tie the horses up by far. This is how I would start to teach a weanling how to tie for the first time, or a horse that was pulling back and having a fit to tie up for the first time, okay? So once the horse is not pulling back, he's comfortable, he's using the thinking side of his brain on the tie ring, then I'm going to move on to the patient's pole if you have one. So you have a patient's pole, that's great. This is a fantastic tool. It's a very safe way to tie the horses. But you're not wrong. They are tied up solid, okay? So there's a few things you can do here. Number one, when you snap them up to the patient's pole, the way this pole works is it doesn't release the pressure like the tie ring does. So when the horse pulls back on the tie ring, he's able to pull the slack through the lead rope and actually move his feet around, but it's going to be more or less straight backwards if he's pulling back away from it. The way the patient's pole works is he is absolutely tied solid, but the idea here is that he can move around the pole, okay? So by being able to move his feet around the pole, you'll get him to use the thinking side of his brain a lot quicker. If he goes to panic and react and pull back, once they figure out that they can move around that pole, it'll encourage the horse to relax and use the thinking side of his brain. Now here's the catch. You've got to teach him to move around the pole. So whenever we would first, we had a lot of patient's poles on Clinton's Ranch in Stephenville, Texas. Whenever we would put a horse on the patient's pole, the first lesson is to snap the horse up to the pole and go move him around the pole. So I'd get my stick and string, and I'm basically doing a little slow version of lunging, more or less at the walk. We had railway ties underneath our patients' poles so the horses wouldn't paw big holes. So you couldn't get them moving real fast on there. They'd slip and fall down, and it would be dangerous. But you just go move them around at the walk. Go move them, 10, 15 circles around one direction, and then get her on the other side, put a little pressure on them with the stick and string, and move them 10, 15 circles around that direction. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to teach the horse that you can move around this thing. So if you feel trapped and claustrophobic and you want to pull back and run and move your feet, you can move your feet around the pole. But you're absolutely right. If you just tie him up to the patient's pole and you just snap the chain up and leave, and let's say the horse doesn't move his feet at all, if something frightens him, he doesn't realize that he's not just tied up solid and that he can actually move around. So you need to go show that to him. So tie ring first, and then the patient's pole. On the odd occasion, we've had horses in the past that were, they get kind of frightened of the pole, or they didn't want to figure out the concept of how to move around the pole, and as soon as you'd snap them up, they get really bothered by it. We're talking on the rare occasion. On the rare occasion, I have snapped the tie ring to the chain on the pole. That gives me a little extra security. So I'm going to go move the horse's feet, but if for whatever reason he panics and pulls back, technically now he's on the tie ring, so now it's a double good deal, okay? I don't want to have to do that long term because they can keep getting it loose, and you get some of these horses that turn into a bit of a smart aleck, and they go to walk around, and once they realize they can walk around and pull the slack out of that tie ring, it's even easier to do that on the patient's pole because they can really get their head turned away more depending on how long the chain is. So that's another little tool in your arsenal if your horse was really bad about this or had a real bad habit about pulling back. But typically, I'm going to say 9.5 times out of 10, if you teach the horse that he can move around on the pole, when you snap him up, you're going to be just fine. That'll prevent you from having a big wreck and a big disaster on your patient's pole.
Take your horsemanship to the next level. The No Worries Club Premium membership is your ultimate portal to complete your horse training. You'll have access to Clinton's complete training library, thousands of hours of step-by-step instructional videos. You'll master all aspects of horsemanship, from fundamentals to trick training. You'll have access to our exclusive social network that connects you with thousands of dedicated horsemen from around the world. You'll have the method available wherever you are and accessible through the web, your phone and tablets, or your favorite streaming devices. You'll receive 8 all-new training videos per year and the quarterly No Worries Journal, as well as access to the ever-growing video library, Q&As, performance horse series, blogs, and more. But that's not all. You also get free tickets to walkabout tours and priority access to the latest news coming from Down Under horsemanship. Not to mention VIP pricing on all of Clinton's must-have training tools. So what are you waiting for? Unlock the ultimate access and jumpstart your training program today.